Hello everyone. So I'm going to make some videos about installing GES and then setting it up for each individual system. As you can see, we have various systems, Megascans, Brushify, Project Nature, and so forth, and some of these systems need to be set up. One of the major things is that before you actually install GES or the Global Environmental System, you need to make sure you have whatever projects you're using installed first. So let's go through the installation instructions. So we need to add Ultra Dynamic Sky to our system first, and then we can download and extract GES. And then before we actually install GES, we need to make sure we go through some of the system setups to make sure we have everything ready. All right, so I've just got a default project here with a landscape. Let's go ahead and set up Ultra Dynamic Sky and install that. That's the first thing we need to do. Sometimes my launchers gets hung up. I'm not sure why. It's been like that for a while, even though I've uninstalled and reinstalled it. There we go. Okay, so let's set up Ultra Dynamic Sky. So one of the first things we need to do is delete any existing lighting that we have there. This is just standard UDS setup procedure. And go to Ultra Dynamic Sky, Blueprints, and we'll drag in a sky. Let's get down to the landscape a little bit. And turn off these so we can move easier. All right, and let's drag the weather in. Okay, and change the weather to clear skies so we know what we're doing. Okay, so that's done. So the next thing we need to do, you can download GES and unzip it, and I've already done that. So downloads and unzip it. I'll just show you where to get that from. Let's see, and I'll obviously put the link in the documentation. So go to releases. You don't want to download the code. You want to go to the releases, and it will download the latest one. You download the zip file, and then you extract it, and we'll set that up in just a minute. So in Megascan's case, we need to do some installation, install some things in Megascans before we install the global environmental system. So one of the first things we need to do with Megascans is we need to make sure we get all of these materials um, installed first. And basically, nowadays, all you need to do is basically download one asset and it will install all these materials. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So you can see here, if we go to our drawer, there is no Megascans, no MSPreset. MSPreset is Megascan's folder for storing all the materials for its assets. So I'm going to go to Quixel and just download some foliage and show you what I'm talking about. All right, let's save it. Okay, so if we open up our content window, you can see that we have Megascans and we have this MSPreset folder. And this is something that's changed. Usually you only got the materials for whatever asset you were downloading. Like maybe you would only get a few of these materials for MS Foliage. You used to not get the VT, which is for virtual texture, unless you had it turned on. I don't have virtual texture turned on. So basically now it's getting all the materials in when you just download one asset, which is great. Um, but I'm going to go ahead and download a couple other assets just for demo. And we'll download, let's see, we'll just download this for demo. Okay. All right. And the next thing we're going to do, because the tree material is not listed in here, it's not part of it, let's go ahead and install a Megascan's tree. All right. And I'm just going to install the black alder. Okay. All right. So now again, in our project now we've got all the Megascan materials downloaded that we need. So now we can go ahead and copy over the global environmental system and then copy over the MS preset. So I've got this extracted. We want to go in here and we've got contents and plugins. You don't need the plugin unless you're using Unreal Water. So let's grab the content and go to our demo, and we can just paste and we go into content. We have global environmental systems. So the next thing we need to do is we need to overwrite this MS preset folder with some of the changes that we've made. So let's go in here, go into integrations, go into Megascans, and copy the MS preset folder. Go back to our content and paste it. Okay. Now we can open up our project and start setting up some of the assets that we need to do. So we'll go back to our documentation. So we've completed this. We've downloaded one Megascan assets, or actually a couple, but it's already created all these materials in the MS preset. We've done this one where we've copied over the content folder, and then we've overwritten the MS preset folder, the Megascan's MS preset folder. Now we're going to put some foliage on our scene and set up the foliage. So let's go to our scene here. Let me just get down a little bit. Okay. All right, so let's paint some foliage. I'm just going to grab these two and maybe set the density up a little bit. And maybe set this up a little bit. And we will plop down some foliage. All right. And then I'm going to add a Megascans tree. Go into geometry, and pivot painter is probably the one you want to use. It gets a hopefully a more realistic aspect to it. All right, and then we'll also drag in another Megascan preset. And of course, you can use whatever assets you want to use. This is just for demo. If you just want to use the trees, that's fine. You can just use the trees. And we'll drag in this minecart. Okay, let's go ahead and just save, since we know Unreal, sometimes likes to crash. All right, so we're looking good there. Actually, let me grab some grass too, just so we can see what that looks like before we go in and set it up. So you'll see some differences. Let's here. And go to foliage and paint some grass. Let's just grab a couple of these. And let's increase the density. And go 1, 2, 2. And paint some grass. Oops. Did I not? Oh, I think I still had the other two checked. Yep. All right, let's try that again. Oh, let's increase the density a little more. Let's go 2 to 3 on that. Let's see how that looks. That's better. Okay, so you can see how it's kind of funky looking. That's to be expected because we haven't set that up. So let's go back and look at the documentation. And we can see that I've replaced the default wind that comes with Megascans with Project Nature's Wind because I think it looks better. And we need to do some setup on the material instance. So for each material instance for the foliage, you need to go in and do this. So we've got two material instances in this case. We've got one for the amaryllis and we've got one for the grass. And you can see what we need to do to set up the wind is check these three boxes here. And let's go ahead and do that. So we will open up the material instances we need. We'll go to Megascans, we'll go to our plants, amaryllis, and open that up. We will scroll down to our wind, some of our wind settings, and it's these three boxes here. Check, check, and check, and save. And then we'll do the same thing for grass. And you'll notice a difference. See how it's funky looking here? And once we check those three boxes and save, oh, there we go. Everything looks good. Um, so we've done that. Let's see what else we need to do in this. Now we can set up the ultra dynamic weather and automatic season for these. I've already added the wet weather effects to the Megascan materials, and we also have seasons. So it says check the UDW weather and enable it, and Megascan foliage also has automatic integration with UDW season change. So let's follow that. Here's the instructions here. You can read along with them. I'm going to do um, the video part of it. So, all right. So let's go in again to our material instances, and we will scroll down, and we've got seasons. We want to enable seasons since we're going to use that. Do not enable the winter since we're using UDW's season change. So we'll first enable use UDW weather. Okay, and if you don't want to use season change, you don't have to set these up. This here, season change, is for manually. If you want to manually do stuff, I just go ahead and enable manual, and I enable the automatic. So use UDS for date for autumn and winter. We're going to enable those. All right, and then we'll scroll back up to the top and under the season settings, and we're going to say yes, we want it to be affected by winter and affected by autumn. Okay, let the materials finish compiling, and we'll save it. And we'll close this down. And you see that it disappeared. That is because my ultra dynamic weather is actually set for winter right now. So this is what happens when it's winter season. The actual grass and foliage does disappear. So let's go ahead and change it to a season where we can see everything. So actually go to simulation, and let's see, sim, and go down to simulation, and here we go. We've got location preset. I'm going to change it to Atlanta since I'm in the Eastern time zone. And you can see, we'll go ahead and change the year to this year. But the main settings are the month and the day, and you can see we're still in winter on the month. So if I change this, there we go, spring, it comes back. So I'm going to leave it in spring right now. All right. And then let's go, we need to set up the amaryllis the same way we set up the grass. And this goes through for any foliage that you download, you need to go to the material instance of that foliage and follow these instructions. Okay, so we need to set up the wind first. Or did I already set that up on the amaryllis? I guess I don't remember setting that up, but yeah, I guess I already did, huh? All right. So again, you need to make sure these three parameters enable for the wind. Now let's enable the weather system, and I'm going to go ahead and enable manual seasons. Again, don't enable the winter if you're using the ultra dynamic weather seasons. This, just enabling this right here, will give you the wet weather effects. So you don't have to use the season change with it. If you just want to enable the wet weather effects, you can leave these unchecked. But and you'll still get the snow accumulating on the foliage, the water accumulating on foliage just by having this enabled. But I want to go ahead and get season change for this as well. So I will enable these and scroll back up to the top and enable season change. Okay. All right, we've got that done for the grass. Now let's do the same thing for our tree. And let's go into our documentation. So we follow the documentation. We've set up um, the UDW. Actually, sorry, we set up the wind here to make sure that's enabled. Then we went down and set up the season change. Okay, and again, you can see all in the documentation. And so we're now done with the foliage. Let's go for the trees. And note here that sometimes there's a small bug for MS trees. Like if you drop in, I think it's I don't remember which one it is. Some of them, if you drop in a tree, it will turn purple. If like, oh, here it is, Norway maple, it'll turn purple. So you need to go to the material instance for any trees that turn purple and set the albino tint back to 1110. Okay? All right, the trees use the default wind system that comes with it. We're not using Project Nature's wind system like we're doing for the foliage. Okay, however, we are using the Project Nature interaction. So what that is when you hit a tree branch, you walk into it with your character, the branch will move, and that's optional. So we're going to go and enable the season change and the wet weather effects for the trees. We want to do this for the leaves, the bark, and the imposter. Okay, so let's go to our tree, click on that, and let's look at our materials. So we've got the trunk, all right, and this trunk's not going to have season change, so we don't need to worry about it. And the trunk, we don't really want to use the interaction. We just want the wet weather effects. Okay? So, and again, we don't have any season change option here because the trunk's not going to really change. So we're good for that in the trunk. Save that. All right. Now this is more of the branches, and we will have season change on the branches, I think. Oh, nope. We don't have it on these either. And you don't need to set these wind settings here. That's fine. So we do want to use foliage interaction on the branches. And we do want to enable UDW weather. Yeah, of course we don't want season change for the branches. I don't know what I was thinking about that. We only want it for the leaves. Okay, so again, there we go. Now we have the wet weather effects. We do have the foliage interaction for the branches. And we will save that. Now we're going to go to the leaves. All right. And now you can see we have seasons. Now, by default, seasons are automatically enabled for the trees. And in this case, we do want to go ahead and enable winter. Okay, and that's going to change there. Now we're also going to enable the wet weather effects, and we want to use foliage interaction on the leaves as well. And we want to go down and enable ultra dynamic weather and the season change for the leaves. I'm just letting the shaders compile. Sometimes it crashes if you do it too fast. And we're going to go back up to season change and affected by autumn. Basically enabling that winter right there means it's affected by winter. Okay, and that. And we'll explain these settings later that you can change. And we'll save that. And we'll go to the decoration. And I think actually this is the branch. I think, yeah, I think this is the branch, so we don't necessarily want interaction on this one, I think. We'll double check that. I think this is the branch. Okay. And make sure. Yep. Okay. That one, and this one. Okay. So I think we do want interaction on the branches, and then this is optional. Again, if you want to or don't want to, that's fine. And we want to use UW weather. And again, we don't have season change for the branches, so we're good there. And then the imposter. Okay. And we do have season change for the imposter. That's already enabled, and we want to go ahead and enable winter as well. Okay. We want to use UDW weather. And enable our autumn as well, and then go scroll back up and choose affected by autumn. Okay, and again, this is all stuff optional. If you don't want to have your imposter affected by any of the season change, I actually haven't really tested to see how it looks, so you may not actually want your imposter affected by season change. You may or may not want it affected by snow coverage or rain coverage. Like I said, I haven't really tested how that looks. So that's up to you. And then we're good to go there. All right. So now we've set up all the Megascan elements. And we actually have one more element to set up. We've done the foliage and the trees. Now this is the minecart. Again, you have to set this up in the material instance for each Megascan asset you want. Let's go ahead, and there's only one material instance here, and of course no season change on that. And all we need to do is enable UDW weather. Okay, so now we get the season change. Let's check our documentation. So we've gone through and set up our material instance for our trees and automatic season. Okay, and we've set up the imposter and the bark and the manual health and seasons, and again, it's the same as the foliage. Okay, so we're all done setting up Megascans. Now, I like to have a little test level blueprint. This is so that I can easily change the weather settings for testing ultradynamic weather. So I'm going to go in and create a new level blueprint. Okay, and delete this. This will kind of also show you how you actually use GES programmatically. And then I am going to go to a site called Blueprint UE where I've got some information saved. And I'll give you the link to these, of course, and we are going to grab what's called GES UDS level blueprint. And I will copy that. Go back into my level blueprint. I will paste that in there. And then I will go up to the top here and we will right click on these variables and create them. And compile. Oops, one more thing. My bad. We need to select the menu, GES. And again, this is for testing. You don't have to use this. You can put your own stuff. And I'm going to quickly go over what I've done here. So just basically number press, and I'm changing the asset to what I want based on the number press. That's all I'm doing. And this transition time is optional. I just have it in GES. It's not something you have to use. It's mainly for testing. You can set the transition time to whatever you want. 0 would be so it changes instantaneously, and you can see that other weathers like snow, it changes instantaneously, and I've got time change for clear skies and thunderstorms. The other thing I'm doing, that's just looping through all the presets if you want. The other thing I'm doing here is wind direction. So on the map, one thing we actually didn't do was drag and drop the global environmental blueprint into our scene after we set up everything, which is fine. Okay, so you can see we've got a little windsock here. And as we change the windsock direction, the wind direction changes on your whole um, scene. Let's go back to our level blueprint, and we can see here all we're doing is grabbing, when I do an X key press or a Z key press, we're grabbing the current wind direction, adding 10, and setting the current wind direction to a new value. All right, and then we've also got the same for the multiplier. Let me explain one thing is GES is automatically monitoring weather change, basically wind speed change, and wind direction change. Think of it as events, except we're just polling for those changes. Other things we're not polling for. So we're not going to poll for when you change other values in GES. One of the things is the wind strength multiplier. So when we change that, we need to set is change wind speed to true, and we need to run it. And other things that you might want to change, again, you would need to actually call the run function. You don't need to call the run functions for things we basically are doing a polling for, and what would basically simulate an event trigger. Okay, compile and save. All right, so let's take a look at it, and we will run. And let me change one thing on my camera. Where is it? Here, I think. Let's just do current location, so it'll be a little easier. And play. Okay, so in my default menu, you can see we've got several options just to change the sky. So let's do rain thunderstorm. Yep. See, I mess up still in under the system. We got to enable Megascans first. Okay, so we scroll down to all our different systems. And you can see here we've got our different systems. You need to enable it first. So we'll enable it. And I've got some default values already set up for each system, which I think look okay. You can change those, and I'll go over. This is the wind speed array, and I'll go over that at another point in our documentation. All right, let's try that again. And you can see that the tree is changing as the wind speed is changing. And so is the foliage. Okay. So we can see that's changing. Now, let's go over quickly the wind speed array. You can use the wind speed array or direct. And I don't have direct set up for everything. What that means, direct means, is that as the UDW wind speed changes from either UDW wind speed is a value of 0 to 10, you pass that directly instead of using the wind speed array. For example, in Brushify, that actually looks better to use the pass in the direct value instead of the using the wind speed array. It's a little smoother. Most of them are using the wind speed array. And when I talk about smoother, you'll see that, and this is for all basically the wind systems, whether it's Maui or Project Nature or the other wind systems that interact with foliage and trees, there's going to be a jerk movement when you change wind speed or wind direction. I have no idea how to fix that. Again, these are other people's systems, except for like Megascan, but I'm not a wind shader guy. And since they happen in pretty much all the systems, I don't know if there's necessarily anything you can do about. So when I say it's a little jerky movement, let's take a look here when we change wind speed. See, as it changes wind speed, it's got a little jerk into it. All right, that's the case. And also when you change wind direction. So if we change wind direction, we'll see that it's also got that little jerky movement. I have no idea how to fix that or anything. Maybe that can be fixed in the shaders. No idea. Unfortunately, that's just the best we've got. I also want to show you the weather effects for winter. Winter is probably the easiest one to see. Let's go ahead and change it to winter, and we'll see in a minute as we'll get accumulation on the trees and other things here. So we're starting to get the accumulation of snow on this. We're getting it on the trees, and we're getting it on our foliage. And that's what the enable UDW weather setting was for. Not the seasons, just the weather. The season change. Let's take a look at that as soon as we dry out here and get back to clear skies. And I was going to explain the wind array. I'll do that in a minute. I kind of skipped around. Sorry about that. Let's just since we're on season change, let's just go through that. So to simulate season change, again, we go to Ultra Dynamic Sky, simulate, and go to, let's just look at month, and I'm just going to set this to end. So let's see, oops. So we can see right now we're in spring, and if we go towards autumn, there we go. We've got a little autumn looking thing. Now we're in winter, so we're in autumn right here, and we can change the day, and you can see it changing the strength of the autumn. We get into winter, the leaves disappear, and we go to the branches, and you can see that the grass and foliage have also disappeared for winter. Okay, go back, and you can see that the foliage and grass also change in autumn. So we've got a little change color here, a little orangish looking thing there. Okay. One other setting on wind speed for Megascans and also Project Nature. Let me just show you this as well. This is something you'll probably want to take a look at. Maybe I think I've got all the settings set up, but let me show you one thing before we go into the wind speed array. So let's look at foliage. And there's documentation on Project Nature's site about all the different variables for the wind speed. I'm not going to go over that, but one of them is might be important. It's called motion dampening. So what that does is, say for these are moving too fast, and maybe you've got maybe you're in rainy and you've got the wind moving a lot, but these might be moving a little faster than you want compared to maybe your grass. Let me go back and change it to spring again. So we get the full graph. If these are moving a little faster than your grass, then what you can do is use what's called motion dampening. You can check that, you can try it out. If you increase this value, it's basically going to slow down the sway speed of whichever asset you're doing. So that's something you might want to keep in mind. And of course, there's all sorts of other parameters, bending parameters, level 1 parameters. You can, again, check Project Nature's website and just play around with it. I'll explain bending in just a minute. Let me go ahead and go through the wind speed array so we understand that. That's pretty important, and I think I've got the default set. And this wind speed array is going to hold true for every system you're using. So I'm not going to explain it on each system. I'm just going to explain it on this Megascans one. So what does the wind speed array do? Well, we open it up, we look at some various things. So we've got use weather name or we've got use wind speed change. So what this is that it's looking for basically an event. In this case, it's actually polling UDW weather for the weather name or the wind speed. And if either one of these changes, you can trigger it. Um, if you go back up to the top of GES, I've got enabled use wind speed event, use weather name event. That means that GES will trigger when you have a wind speed change. It'll trigger when you have a weather name change. Now, we're not going to focus on the weather name change because I've talked to several customers and most people only care about the wind speed change when the wind changes. I'm going ahead and leave this in default, enable both of these enabled by default because it really doesn't matter if the weather name changes or not. We're mainly focused on the wind speed change. So we'll go back to our array and you can see that in our array, we can also choose use weather name or wind speed. I've got it unchecked, so use weather name is true, use wind speed is false. So we're using wind speed, so I don't care about the weather name. If I did, then I would basically say, okay, if it's blizzard, then run this array index. Okay, so we're doing the same thing with wind speed. In this case, we're saying wind speed greater than 0, wind speed less than 2. So when we play our game and we have a wind speed of between 0 and 2, this index is going to be true. And when this index is true, then we're setting our foliage wind strength to 2 and our tree wind strength to 2. And there's other wind tree values that you can change. This comes with the default MS trees that you have. I left them all to the default values. The only thing for me that I'm concerned about is changing the wind strength. So let's take a look at another array. So if we look at that, now we're looking for a wind speed of greater than or equal to 2.1 and less than or equal to 4. Again, so if the wind speed is between these values, then it's going to trigger index 1. And in index 1, we've increased the foliage strength and the tree strength, can't tongue twisted, to 4. So let's take a look at our last one. This would be like a thunderstorm. So we're looking for a wind speed of 8.1 to 2 between those values, and we're setting the foliage strength to 10. And in this case, we're setting the tree strength to 12 because, again, it's how things look. Maybe the foliage is at high speeds, it's moving too fast, and the tree is not moving fast enough. So this is where you can determine what the speeds, you know, you want and what it looks good. Again, I've set these defaults up um, to what I think looks good. You can add other arrays. So if you want to add another array and you want to look at the wind speed between 0 and 1, you can do that. You don't want to overlap arrays. So if you've already got something set to look for 0 and 2, you don't want to overlap. So if I want to look for 0 and 1, then I want to also change this one here to be 1.1 to 2. So that way each array is looking for a unique wind speed range. So now I've got 0, 1 here, and then I could set the foliage wind strength to 1 or 2, whatever I want, and that would work. And I've got the array set up to the defaults that I think look good, but you're welcome to add or remove, just as long as they don't overlap. So 0. All right. So I think that is it. The flip tree direction, I have enabled because it moves in the correct direction with the direction of the windsock. If you don't have it direction, it actually moves in the opposite direction. This was just something that came with the default Megascan tree setup. Enable foliage health and season. Again, if these are for the manual health and seasons, if you don't have these enabled, then the manual health and seasons don't work. The manual health and seasons are here. And again, this is not related to ultra dynamic weather's automatic season change, you can change it manually. So let's do season brightness. Let's oh, I need to I think I had it set on here. Okay, so dropping down the health, you can see that's changing. Um, some things look better than others. I think I had that changed. Random color variation. Oh, season strength. That's why it wasn't working. I'm sorry. Let me go back. Okay, that's why it wasn't changing like it should have been. Let me go back to Megascan. All right, so the health is not dependent on the season strength. So I've got the season strength to 0. You need to change the season strength. Man, I can't talk today. To 1 in order for these values to take effect. So we changed it to 1. Now you can see that changed the color of the grass. Again, this is for manual. So you see how that changed. And now once you have it to 1, now these values will be affected. So you can change the saturation. And again, this is manual values. So you could change this in your blueprint. Just grab GES and then grab the MS foliage season and saturation variable and set it to whatever you want. And this again is manual. Whereas in the material instance, we've got it set to use the uh, ultra dynamic weather season. But you can still do that manually. And these are all additional for trees and foliage manual assets. I think that is it for the setup for the Megascans. Okay. Anything else I can think of? We've gone through the wind speed array. We've set up the uh, materials. And I believe that is it. Thank you all for listening.